Welcome to Mixed Media Monday. Today I'm going to be showing you the very first page in my brand new Strathmore visual journal. It's a mixed media journal, and what I'm doing first off here is I'm just adding a nice smooth layer of Liquitex Professional gesso. And gesso is kind of like a primer to the page, and so what I'm going to be showing you is a technique that I have already shown on Fast Frames Friday. And this is a project that I used or that I created based on the Fast Frames Friday about resist with color bloom sprays and the 3D matte gel from Art Basics. So I'm just covering this with the nice smooth layer of the gesso to prep my page. And then I'm going to add the color bloom sprays once the gesso is nice and firmly dry. Now, these color bloom sprays are the old sprays. They have revamped their formula to make them less sticky, and I'm not sure that this effect can be achieved with the new color bloom sprays recipe, but I guess it's worth a try. And I'm not sure that it'll work with other kinds of gesso or anything else like that. But this is kind of a bit of a resist kind of idea to it. So I sprayed on the three colors that I had in my stash, and the greenish one is soft teal, the second one is storm cloud, and the third one is peony. Then I dried it, and then I added another layer of peony. So then my next step is to pull out this Prima stencil, and I normally wouldn't really worry about masking off the flower, but in this case I'm masking off the details that I don't want to end up on my page. And the reason that I'm going to do this is that I have to work really fast, and I will show you why in a moment. So I'm just going around the flower and positioning the paper to cover as much of the extra holes as I possibly can to make sure that my 3D gel doesn't get anywhere but on the flower. Then I'm going to do the other side. And it's not until I'm watching this video that I'm sitting here going, hey, I like that paper, and now it's gone. This paper's been sitting in my stash for years, and I've never thought to use it. So now that I'm looking at it, it would be perfect for doing things like collaging, which is something I do quite a bit. So, oh well, c'est la vie. So I'm just going to tape it down, rip around the leaves, and keep patching and make sure all the holes are filled. And then once that's all filled, I will add my 3D matte gel. This is just a chemistry thing. I'm not saying that either of these products is a bad product. I mean, sometimes you come across a chemical reaction that either really bothers you or really benefits you, and it's kind of up to you on how you deal with that situation. And when I discovered this technique, I have to say that I was really frustrated because it was not part of my intended project at that time. So instead of being angry about that, I am making a project where this effect is exactly what I'm trying to achieve. So you have to work very fast with this, and normally you can play a little bit and work your way through. With this technique, you cannot do that. You have to go really quick. You have to fill the voids of the stencil in as fast as you can. You cannot scrape off the top, and you cannot pull the medium very far at all, pull the gel very far at all. It just simply does not work. The best thing to do with this technique is to have a nice thick layer, especially in the wider parts of your stencil. And so I have a lot of extra stuff on that stencil, and what I'm going to do is I scraped off this stencil and put it on a piece of just plain cardstock. So this is the effect that I'm talking about. What happens is the bloom sprays do not get absorbed into the gessoed surface of the paper. So what ends up happening is you get a resist effect rather than nice, wonderful, clear, textured effect that you're looking for when you put the 3D matte gel down. Because that 3D matte gel will dry clear if you let it. But I've found even with this process, letting it dry, it doesn't work to do what you want it to do. It doesn't solidify properly, and that's what it does. Is it turns into this taffy textured kind of layer that you can just pull up with a pair of tweezers. I know the color is bad. It looks like flesh, but I promise you it's not. So I just go through and I finish off with this flower, and I would have edited this out and just told you that I had done that. But all I'm doing is seriously rolling it all off and then picking off the pieces. And as I zoom in here, you can see that that is truly all I'm doing is pulling off the pieces. And they dry as floating chunks on your page. They will not absorb or adhere to the page, even though you would think that it would eventually dry. So the issue here is the 3D matte gel is designed for a surface that is more absorbent. So if I was on paper or watercolor paper or cardboard or anything like that, it would adhere beautifully, and it would give me a really hard time trying to get the texture off. It would pull the layers of paper off before it would become unstuck. If I were to put this on a plain canvas, again, because it's an absorbent surface, it would work out just fine. Now the problem that I'm having in this area is that it wasn't quite dry, and B, I didn't quite have enough ink on that part of the page, and so what it was doing is it was just sitting on top of the gesso and it wasn't really drying, but it didn't give me the resist kind of, or the absorbing of the ink that I wanted it to give me. So I just kind of went through, and because I had ended up scraping this leaf with my tweezers, what I tried to do is just smooth it out with my finger. And the good thing about that is that because this just made the ink bubble on the leaf, the ink was still on the page, and I could smooth the ink out into a consistency in which it would dry a little bit nicer. So I didn't put with this part of the leaf, if you watch the beginning of this video, I didn't put the gel on as thickly as I had for the rest of it, and that's why it was so much difficulty in removing the gel. But if you put a nice even thick layer on your stencil, then this will come off just like taffy. And here's some stills of the finished look. So there's some puddling, and then it still has a little bit of texture and grooves and stuff like that. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my gesso again, and I'm going to use my white gesso as a paint. And I didn't want to put any acrylic paint on here because that was one of the debates that I had, was if I put an acrylic paint on here, is it just going to bead up on my project? And I didn't want to take that risk. So I decided to go back to my gesso, because my gesso will adhere through to another layer of gesso. And that I was pretty confident that it would dry. So this is another stencil from Prima, and it's just a whole bunch of dots. It's a whole bunch of words, and I think there's roses on this one down in the bottom quadrant. And I'm really sorry that I forgot to unzoom my camera for this, because I would have really liked it if you could see this part. While I was editing the video, I was actually trying to readjust my camera, but it was a little too late. So going through this, I decided, oh, I like the word love, so I'm going to put the word love into this. And then I decided, okay, I like the word happy, and I like the word complete, and I like the phrase I love you. So I put the paint through the stencils on those as well. And then I got to thinking, this is not something that I'm giving away. This is for me. This is, just a journal entry. That's all it is. It's a journal entry. It's a chance to play with this new technique that I had discovered, and that's what I was going to do. So I decided just to add all the words from the stencil, even though they maybe didn't speak to me. I decided that it would be fine anyways just to add them all to the page. So then I grabbed a little bit of red, and what I'm doing with the red is I'm emphasizing. It's actually not red, it's called primary red, but my primary red in the Liquitex comes out as a pink. So what I did is I took that Liquitex red, primary red, and I put it through some of the words that I really, really liked. So I put it through my everything, I put it through the word happy, and I put it through the phrase I love you. And then I took my diamond stencil. I can't remember who makes this one. I suspect that it's Crafter's Workshop, but I'm not 100% certain. And so I just tried to use up the rest of my acrylic paint that I had taken out, and it seems to be a thin enough layer that I don't have a problem. So it must be just the chemical reaction between the matte gel and the bloom sprays instead of an acrylic reaction. So I did take my black artist Pitt pen and I outlined some of the diamonds and I outlined some of the words, and then I went over all the flowers with my white oil-based Sharpie paint pen just to emphasize the white flower, because it just wasn't doing what I wanted it to do, even though this page was to play with that one effect. Thank you for joining me on Lizzie's Workshop.